I'm perhaps a bit of an eccentric in Britain, says Andrew Lloyd Webber, yet all my lifetime I've favorite musicals. I fair loving the shape. I loving the style. He's a loving case house rotated him in one of the largest success theater composers of all period. Of Joseph and Jesus Christ superstardom all the way up to his newest strike, High School of Fate, same's been a constant present on Broadway and the Western End for nearly 50 years, collecting up 7 Olivier Awards, 7 Tonys, 4 Persons Grammys, and an Oscar on the path. On March 22, he turned 70, labeling the event in a celebrity-studded, 4-persons disc retrospectively scrapbook and the at first amount of his memoir. But same's not too concerned by the date of birth hype. I'm one of such human beings who likes to go striker, he confesses. I discover looking ago all the period gets a bit lot. Extending the torment a slight much longer, we requested Lord Lloyd Webber to represent on 7 songs how certain his career. End of YouTube position by Jesus Christ superstardom the portrait hoboy how opening superstardom nearly never done it in the melodic, says Lord Lloyd Webber. Couple days following I mind of it, I'd neglected he says. Later it came behind to me while I was walk history a small restaurant in Fulham. I knew the guy who ran it, so I went in and told, can I adopt a cloth? And I wrote the melody downward since I didn't wish to overlook it once again. I recall the time really so. The 15-mentioned sentence generated 1,000 imitations and more than rather than a few sports ground parodies. Does he include a favorite? Affirmative, he does. Georgie Top, superstardom, the songwriter recites, poker player faced. Walks love a female and he wears a brassiere. End of YouTube position by ALWVEVO piece of music of the overnight begun out as a loving email to Sarah Brightman, spelled while Lloyd Webber was yet in his at first woman, Sarah Hugill. I mind it was very a really nice chant, the songwriter after said David Morrow's, yet all told to me, Andrew, you cannot compose a chant on a lady possessing an case in a marital man and wait to get off in the. Respectively, it was saved off in Lord Lloyd Webber's Melody Banking, and resurfaced while he embarked on written Ghost of the Opera. Thou can't do how really frequently, he says. To sample, I've got perhaps 20 tunes in my chief at the time and know of such tunes, not one of them would job remotely for the object how I'm intent to do following. Same largest essential item to recall in a melodic is thou re the man of the history. In the late, marital man became piece of music of the overnight, that the ghost sings to tempt the subject of his affections, Christine Dat. Affirmative, lot to Sarah's irritation, the chant was taking into account to the ghost, Lord Lloyd Webber laughs. She yet, in her gig, sings it occasionally and says, I'm departure to rectify the quantity how was initially spelled for me. End of YouTube position by Joseph and the Wonderful Technicolor Dreamcoat. In the summer of 1967, Andrew Lloyd Webber was requested to compose an unique chunk for the chorus of St. Gender's Younger High School to chant at their Easter gig. Same unique short was how it could be sung by family, their sounding had got to be capable to manage in he, Lord Lloyd Webber recalls. Yet I didn't trade off whatever. The songwriter once closed his boyfriend Tim Rees for assist in the lyric. They initially toyed in the concept of written a ties cheat, thou just dwell 2 times had fair hit the cinemas, Rees offered the Bible history of Joseph, whose capacity to construe ambition helps rescue Egypt of hunger. The at first productivity took location on a common cold winter afternoon in March 1968. It lasted fair 20 protocol, but the 7th song, Priest Cantata, start up one of Lord Lloyd Webber's largest durable songs, Any Vision Will Do. It was a easy chant spelled, apparently, in family in reason, he says of its innocent, kennel rhythm-like tune. It was intended to instill family to chant. We didn't always believe it would do the theater, since we didn't compose it for the theater. Or, though present, Joseph is the largest famous Shah in schools and colleges through America, that is cute emergency. In the workshop, Rees and Lloyd Webber requested the Scotch celebrity to chant at a high tilt rather than she was utilized to, so she'd audio youthful and brittle, love her nature. We were hard to do and scrapbook how would do feeling if you were auditory to it at household, out of the phase manufacture about he, says Lloyd Webber. So in how chant, she apparently had to audio love a youthful lady. Varvara has the beautiful low tone, but she was really readily to offer it a go. And I believe how house which makes it job. I believe how might include been a slight bit of an exclusion, though later, he says, humbly. Thou include to know how. In Britain, musicals include ever been external the main. Madonna as well took Else Bag in Else Room in the top 10 in 1997 following pretending the chant for Eva Peron in the movie release of the melodic. Madonna annexed he, deadpans the songwriter. End of You took position by Cats. The melodic Cats was the at first melodic Lloyd Webber wrote out of a lyric poet, based the history about lyricist T.S. Eliot's Old Opossums volume of Pragmatic Cats, that he recite as a kid. Up to how period, I'd generally spelled the piece of music at first, later the lyric were set to he says. I requested to see if I could do it the some way circle. Or, as it happens, Magic Mr. Mistopheles was one of the at first ones I did. Same item on Eliot's poem is it nearly sings to thou. I indicate, the poem of how epic seemed rather cowardly to me and later you include the choir in, oh so, I never / was down there always a cat so smart / as Magic Mr. Mistopheles. Such poems are nearly love lyric. They've got choruses and they've got verses and they've got medium sections. It was a joy to set it to piece of music. End of You took position by Sundown Avenue relying on Billy Wilder's movie of the identical behalf. Sundown Avenue tells the history of aging quiet display Queen Norm Desmond. As if we never told farewell comes deceased in the Shaw, as Desmond imagines her drama back to the display. The auditorium's expertise how she's deluding herself lends the chant its protracted longing. How's a fabulous time for a melodic playwright, says Lord Lloyd Webber. While I at first saw the cinema of Sundown Avenue I mind, ooh, if always I was capable to get the rights, how's the time how very makes it worth. The chant has been executed by Elaine Webb Page, Varvara Dickinson and Patti LuPone, among other, but the final release is by Glenn Schutt, who has played Desmond 2 times on Broadway. Same exciting item in Sundown is he's a large benefit for the auditorium if thou got a cinema celebrity in the part, since human beings refer more than to Norm as a cinema celebrity rather than whatever else, says Lord Lloyd Webber. Same item on Glenn is how, though she herself wouldn't complain to be the big artist on land, she's perhaps one of the big actresses. She makes how time extremely specific. End of You took position by Broadway.com. Lord Lloyd Webber's largest latter hit is High School of Fate, the history of a helpless replaced tutor who inspires his grade by receive them to competitive in a fight of the bands contest. He's relying on the 2002 Nest Dark movie, that he was entered to by his woman, Madeline. While I heard the link in the cinema, adhere it to the person, I mind, so, down there's a chant there, he recalls. I had the melody for how in virtually seconds. It was ever departure to be a guitar-relying chant. How, Reef conducted me behind to the days while we were record Jesus Christ Superstardom and we had led Blimp in the workshop following Doorway. The environment of the melodic intended how Lord Lloyd Webber had to discover 13 youthful performers for every manufacture, who every act their own tool as so as dancing, sing and operating. They very do act, he says of the very impressive casts. Down there's no increase, no before recording, anything. Following the at first 2 or 3 previews, I implemented the auditorium didn't trust how, so I had to do an ad at the start proverb, all is played well. Andrew Lloyd Webber's retrospectively scrapbook exposed, the Platina Gallery is accessible currently.